welcome to the channel. Did you know that 90% of our viewers are not subscribers? We're really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you're enjoying the videos, please do hit the subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss what we've got coming up next year. Today we are with the most controversial kitchen appliance that there is that money can buy. It is the one car that causes the most debates in my supercar club, with the people that own them telling us how great they are and the people that have never driven one saying that they're rubbish and they would never own an EV. So you go figure out what's going on there. This particular car is a 2021 Tesla Model 3 dual motor long range. It's got a 75 kilowatt, 360 volt lithium ion battery, whatever that means, 350 kilowatt horsepower, which equates to about 470 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in about 4.4 seconds, and a top speed of 145 mile an hour. Claimed range is around 360 miles, but I'd say you have to drive like my grandma on an incredibly straight motorway in optimal conditions to get that. Real world is about 280, with even less in winter. It's heavy, it weighs around 1850 kilos, but to be honest, it carries that weight really well and you don't feel it at all really when you're driving around in it. Right, let's have a look at the boot. Great size, you can pretty much fit whatever you want in here. Definitely fit a large suitcase, seats go down, so yeah, perfect. You've also got the front boot, which you can open with the big screen in there, or I can pull up my app and open it with a touch of a button. In here we've got the charging cables for if you go to somewhere that hasn't got an EV charger and you need to charge it with the mains. You've got everything you might need in here. Right, let's have a look inside. Now, to be honest, this is not going to be a really long review because I've already done one and I do not see the point in doing the same thing twice. So if you do want to watch that, click the link above now. But this is more of having lived with this car for over a year, what I love and what I hate about it. So the first thing is I will still never to this day understand why my other half spec'd white leather seats. However, they are actually really easy to keep clean. They've got this fake leather stuff, and I can't remember what he calls it, but basically it's kind of a wipe-off solution. They actually stay pretty clean, even when you've got blue jeans on that stain them really badly. Just take it to a valet and you're good. And then secondly, you've got this screen. The whole car essentially runs on this screen. The sat-nav is fabulous. It runs on Google Maps. It is perfect 99% of the time, but then there is that 1% of the time where it just randomly goes, oh, fancy taking you down this weird road that you definitely don't need to go down, and adds like 10 minutes to your journey. So that's pretty frustrating. The other thing I don't like is the wipers. So on the steering wheel you can set what buttons you want to do what, and we've got this particular car set so that the wipers are controlled on the steering wheel, but they are also controlled on this big screen. That's not the point, right? The wipers on auto mode, shockingly bad. They seem to have absolutely no clue what rain is happening, how heavy it is or anything. And if it's not raining, the wipers will come on. And if it is raining, the wipers won't come off. Like rubbish. You have to set them yourself. And you've got to be on top of the wiper speeds because the car will not do it for you. In terms of things I love the wireless charging port at the front, underneath the screen. And also there is so much storage in this car. So this little cubby hole here is huge. You've got the cup holders here, and then you've also got a little bit more under here. And then you've also got the glove box on top of that. So you could not possibly want any more storage in a car than you have in this. I'd also say it does sometimes feel a bit plasticky, but once you're used to it, again, it's not a big deal. Love this little steering wheel. Feels teeny tiny compared to most cars. Feels like you're really engaged with the car. There's no other buttons on it. It's not like a lot of new cars where you've got buttons all over the steering wheel. Just feels lovely. The only thing about it is when it's hot and it's leather and you can fill in the blanks. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the car, it's pretty much, I'd say, inside, it's what I would expect for a car of this value. I like it. Some people don't. It's a bit Marmite, but there we go. Anyway, let's go for a drive. The first thing is, I've already mentioned that the wipers are pretty rubbish. So you press the button, The auto wiper thing just doesn't work. You have to be in charge of the wiper. It is what it is. Also, the brakes are pretty rubbish. We actually have, or my other half has actually put like track brakes on these, like really good brakes on it, because he's done a couple of track days in it when his car's been broken and you know, when I've been in the Lotus, but they're still pretty rubbish. There's been a couple of occasions where I've been hooning along and I've come up behind someone like, oh, am I going to stop? And I have, but it's been a bit touch and go. I've also already mentioned the sat nav, which is done on Google Maps, which again is great most of the time, but sometimes it's not so great. Also, the other thing it does do is it works out kind of the best case scenario and then increases in time as you're driving along. Whereas obviously if you use Google Maps on your phone or Waze or whatever, it will tend to work out what the actual journey time is going to be and tell you up front, rather than it kind of giving you a false sense of hope and then, you know, tearing down your dreams. Steering is very, very responsive. It is properly like a little go-kart. Obviously you don't get the feel and stuff that you do in other, you know, dedicated sports cars through the steering wheel, but actually it's not bad. You still kind of know what's going on. Turn the steering wheel and it goes. Like it's so responsive. It's like it's really, really, really nimble. And for a daily car, and what I would have imagined electric cars to be, it is fantastic to drive. I've said that in my last review that I did, you know, not long after I started driving around this car more often, and my opinion on it really hasn't changed in terms of how it drives. It is absolutely brilliant, and it's the car that I choose to drive on the road. I have got other cars, and I've obviously got the Lotus. This is the one that I come out every morning and I tend to pick to drive because it is just so good compared to all the other stuff that I own, and it's also not absolutely horrendous to drive like the Lotus is. So yeah, I mean, I go and watch that other review. It is utterly fantastic to drive. The single pedal kind of no gear thing was kind of hard to get used to at first. It does require a bit of a different brain, because I'm used to sort of having flappy paddles, and if I'm hooning to, you know, put the car in manual and be using the flappy paddles and that sort of stuff, you don't get that in this. And there's a couple of occasions where I've been hooning along and I've wanted to downshift manually on my own with a paddle, and obviously the option isn't there. The regenerative braking is brilliant as well, and as I say, once you're used to it, it's really easy to get your head around. I very rarely actually use the brakes when I'm just pootling along now. And also it's another one, you kind of pull up to someone, think, oh, is it going to stop? And to be fair, it tends to. It's really, really good once you've got your head around it. The adaptive cruise control is a absolute game changer. I love it so much. So every other car that I've owned or been in is just kind of a normal cruise control, including the RS5 was the same. This, you set the cruise control and it will then change the speed that you're going. If someone's in front of you and they're going slower than the speed that you've set, you don't have to manually brake and then speed up again when they do. It will do it for you. The only issues I've found with it is that sometimes the speed limits aren't overly accurate because it goes on speed limit as well. So if you're in an average speed limit zone, it will set the speed to the speed limit of the road rather than what you set the car to, unless you then manually override it. But I was on the motorway the other day in a 50 mile an hour average speed zone, and then the car just randomly decided that it was 10 mile an hour speed limit and it started slowing down, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And it's got the little 10 mile an hour thing on the dash, and I'm like, on what planet is it going to be 10 mile an hour on a bloody motorway? And there was nothing in front of me, so it wasn't like it was slowing down for that. It was just, don't know what the car was doing, but it definitely had gremlins in its like GPS thingy, whatever it uses to decide the speed limit. Stupid. Charging. So charging, you probably want to have a charger at home. I think it would be really inconvenient to have to go and charge it out away from the home every single time. Not sure I could be bothered with that, considering it's, sort of, you're going to be sat somewhere for at least like 20 minutes waiting for it to charge. And if you do a lot of miles, could be very frustrating. But once you get home, get into the habit of putting it on charge, by magic, basically, it's charged in the morning. The only issue you do have is, you know, if you've had the electric trip overnight, or you haven't put the charger thing into the charger hole good enough, and it doesn't charge. As long as, again, you check that stuff, and, you know, having the electric trip is like once in a blue moon thing, but it does happen. It's not like it never happens. The system is not completely foolproof. You've just got to be aware of it and make sure that you keep charging the car every night, rather than just waiting for it to kind of run down like you do with fuel and then recharging it. It's one of those, like, you know, with your phone, where you kind of charge it every single night. Public charging, again, absolutely fine. I've used it a couple of times now, and you literally just pull up, plug your thing in, put your card on the tappy thing, and go and get a coffee, or, you know, croissant or whatever, and get your lunch. And I mean, I tend to come back and sit in the car and have a lunch and wait for it to charge. You can literally be sat there for 15 minutes and then you're ready to go and finish on your journey, if that. We've also, again, done track days in it, and just charged it in the morning. So charged it in the morning just before we got to the track, because obviously we've driven to the track in it, and then at lunchtime we've just gone and got lunch, and then it's, you know, it's put enough charge on it to complete the day. So you can go and do a track day on it. You cannot do a track day at Anglesey because they've stopped electric cars going there. But yeah, I mean, public charging, absolutely no drama. I've never gone somewhere and not been able to charge the car. They've really got the, you know, the infrastructure kind of nailed. I think Tesla have. It's very rare that you turn up to a charging station and not be able to get in. Also, a thing to note, if you have got a different electric car, last time I knew, and again, if this is incorrect, don't take my word for it, do your own research, but last I knew, Tesla had opened up their software and their chargers to any car, so you can go there in a Taycan or something and be able to charge the car. So that's really handy to know. Funnily enough, I'm doing a Taycan review in the next couple of weeks, so look out for that if you do want a Taycan, and I'll be comparing it to the Tesla, I'm sure. Software updates. So one feature that's actually really cool on these is every couple of weeks it will update the software. So when I had the RS5, someone else, I didn't spec it, but someone else spec'd the car with various things, and I went and spent 85 grand on the privilege. This, every couple of weeks, will update the software, so you're not in a position where you're having to spec stuff on the car. I mean, I'm guessing you probably do, you know, I'm guessing the performance has got more spec, but in terms of software, it will update automatically, and then you get new features. Like we've noticed recently, it's got the adaptive headlights, which it never had. And you know, that's the sort of thing that you have to spec into a car normally, or in my experience, you've had to spec into a car. I'm sure newer cars have, you know, things that you can buy while you're in the car, whatever. But that, for me, is a really cool feature, because you kind of know that when Tesla update all their stuff, you're going to get the new feature. And yeah, it's like getting into a new car sometimes. It's great. The only thing is when they change stuff around. It's like walking into Tesco when they've changed all the stores around, and you can't actually find anything. So that is one thing to note, that sometimes when it's done a software update, they'll move stuff around, you know, they'll add new features. So it's kind of, it's one of those you want to spend a bit of time figuring out what they've done, otherwise you're going to be pressing buttons and not have a clue what you're doing. It's really cool as well that you can set whatever you want on the buttons on the steering wheel. So you've got nothing on the steering wheel. You haven't got loads and loads of features on the steering wheel. Most of the car is run from the screen, and that's kind of where you have to find all your bits. And well, you've got a couple of buttons on the steering wheel that you can set for, you know, functions that you want. Another point is that if you set driver profiles, so you can set as many driver profiles as you want, and then you get in and you just select which driver profile it is. Sometimes if you've got a driver profile for people that are often in the car together, it will basically pick its favourite. So my other half is his car, and he's got his own driver profile, and then it is not my car, but I've got my own driver profile, or I did, and every time we get in the car together, it would default to my driver profile. I'm guessing just because I drive the car more, but it would default to my driver profile, and then he would be ended up sitting on the steering wheel because I'm too short to reach, and he's like not short, and so so the seat would be pushing him in, and he's like, no, stop. So that's one thing to note as well, is it will pick a favourite, And in the end, he got so annoyed of it that he just deleted my driver profile. So I'm having to use his driver profile and just move the seat forward manually and not save it every time, which seems to be working okay. So yeah, just a note on that, it will pick its favourite, and chances are the car's going to try and kill you by pushing you as close to the steering wheel as it possibly can. Living with and kind of driving it every day, what's it like? To be honest, again, it's absolutely brilliant. It is the car that I choose to drive when we come out in the morning. It's not as luxurious as some other cars, you know, a lot of, you know, like the RS5 was a very luxurious place to be. It had carbon everywhere. This is kind of plasticky, you know, there's nothing majorly special about it. It's, you know, there's not really any bells and whistles, but it's a nice place to be. I enjoy driving it. I think it's a great car to drive. I am one of the defenders in the supercar club when they're all having a debate about whether electric cars are good or not. Well, Teslas are good or not, considering I was one of those people before I started driving this car around every day that was like, I will never have an EV. I don't see the point in them. They're rubbish. There's no infrastructure. They won't be good to drive. They're too heavy. You know, all the blooming excuses that people come up with actually is a pile of crap. I have to say, it's brilliant. It's completely different to what I expected, and I am sorry, Tesla, for ever bitching about you before I got the opportunity to drive one on a regular basis. Okay, so I've done a load of talking there, and I guess the question is, would I, assuming I didn't have the Lotus or my own kind of daily car, would I have an electric car as my only car? And I would say that the answer is probably no. And the reason for that is simply, if you know you have any issues with charging it overnight and you've got a meeting the next day, what do? And in my line of work, I need to have a car available at all times. Also, it's one of those, again, if you're going on a long journey and you're having to stop over a few times to charge a car, that could get inconvenient. If you're going on holiday and there isn't a charger available at the property that you're staying at, that's inconvenient. But would I have one alongside, you know, maybe the Lotus alone? And I'd say probably the answer is yes. You know, it would be inconvenient having to drive the Lotus because it's horrible to drive on the road, but you know, you could get away with it every so often, and just drive around in this the rest of the time. This is an absolutely fantastic car, I have to say. I'm very lucky that I get to drive, you know, the cars that I get to drive. But there is, you know, there's something really satisfying about just getting into a comfortable car that can also handle, that you can have a bit of fun in. But generally, you know, you're quite happy sitting around at 50 mile an hour in. I've bought a Q5, which I'll be doing a review on at some point. And again, I would choose to drive this over the Q5. The Q5 is literally just a tow car for me. Or you know, a car if I don't have this available. So yeah, I would say if you're thinking about going electric and you're not sure whether to, go and drive one, see what you think. Just bear in mind that it's not completely foolproof just yet, I guess, is probably the one bit of advice that I'd give you. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have got any questions about the car, please do ask me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. And yeah. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything in future. Drop us a comment, let us know what you think of the car, what you think of the videos, and I'll see you in the next episode.